All right, let's do this. And it's another year. And like last year, this will be a tier list of the games that I played this year. This video is, once again, mostly for my friends, partly for my memory. I played less games this year than I did last year. Played 17 games. And I'm filming this a little bit late because I was pretty sick last week, but that's okay. It gave me just a little bit of time to finish up the last game. And these are not every single game I played this year, but these are effectively single player games, or the ones I treated as single player games. I think at least one, no, at least two were like new releases, and one was pretty much a new release, which I think is similar to last year. A quick, I guess, refresher of the scale I like to use, which again can be subject to my capricious whims, but I try and call a 10 out of 10 a masterpiece game, a game that's perfect, essentially, and it's a must experience. And a 9 out of 10 is an excellent game, and I would also say it's arguably a must experience. 8 out of 10, this is the zone where I would definitely recommend it. There might be some flaws. Two things I'll get to with that. 7 out of 10, it's good, and I might still recommend it. Starting to enter a zone with more flaws, but overall still a very enjoyable experience. 6 is the zone where a game is a positive experience overall. It's probably got something that's either fundamentally holding it back in terms of mechanics, or maybe it's just not that interesting, but it's still a good game. And I overall enjoy it, but it's not one that I would particularly recommend to others to play. Not one that I would consider like a must play as far as games go. 5 out of 10 is neither good nor bad. There might have been positive experiences in it, but certainly there might be parts of the experience that are negative. And then a 4 out of 10 or worse is an experience that was overall averaged out to negative. And hopefully, I would experience, with the fact that I tend to pick games that already sort of have a reputation preceding them. I would hope that most of the games I play end up at 6 or 10 or better. But let's see what I thought this year. And then two small notes. One, I gave F-Zero GX an 8 out of 10, but when I really think about it, in retrospect, I upgraded to a 9. That game was amazing, and I still think about it, and it is difficult to think of flaws. So that's a 9 out of 10. And I stand by giving Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 an 8, even though those games really spoke to me, and they really sit in my memory. I still think that they have all sorts of, they have what I considered negatives in the actual gameplay department that did hold them back from being perfect experiences. But I want to emphasize that an 8 out of 10 is really, really good. I think of things in the scale because most games are at least pretty good. And I think I want to have some gradation to really determine what's worth the time. All right, let's get started. First game I played was Balatro. And I kind of have a hard time where to put Balatro. I think for me it was probably like a 7 out of 10. I definitely did recommend it to some people. Balatro, so I should say I'm not that much of a roguelike guy or roguelite guy. And so that's going to prevent me from, I think, maybe seeing this game's full potential. I think there was, a couple years ago I played Slay the Spire, and I was not blown away, even though some people consider that their GOAT. But I will say what Balatro is really good for is an amazing visual and auditory experience. It's hypnotic. The sounds are so dreamlike and tactile. I love the sort of CRT screen video poker machine style. I think where this game was at its best is where you just kind of try and roll with a run and see if you can make it work. I find it difficult not to get into bad habits like playing runs the same way every time, especially when a roguelite offers you a high level of fixing power. You sort of want to fix your deck the same way and go for the same jokers over and over. But I still thought it was a very cool game, and it occupied quite a lot of my time and mental space. Next, I played Metal Gear Solid 3, which I think I would also give a 7. Metal Gear Solid 3 was really good. I think it was maybe just a notch behind 1 and 2 for me. It certainly felt more story driven, which, as I understand, was the point. It was cheesy at times, but lovingly so. It was very atmospheric. It was a lot of fun. I did find myself fumbling with certain sections, especially as I was trying to sneak around the final base. I think that was Grozny Grad. I don't totally remember the names anymore. And I almost wish I'd played on like a harder difficulty, so that if I get caught, I could just get shot and have to restart sooner. Because sometimes there would be whiles where I would be just waiting for 2 minutes, hiding in some corner or some like little corridor, waiting for everyone's alert level to reset, and then upon leaving within 30 seconds I'd screw it up and I'd do it again. And then sometimes I would just take a really aggressive approach where I would just try and fight everyone, and I think in a few spots it like infinitely spawns guards, so that backfired on me too. But a lot of the stuff like Ocelot or some of the boss fights, very memorable. Good stuff. Great theme song. Next, I played Cave Story. I had actually played Cave Story in the past, many years ago. I played it when it came out on the Nintendo DSiWare, and I played it again because I found my old DSi, and I kind of had remembered Cave Story striking me as being like profoundly good the first time I played it. This time on a revisit, I think it's a 7 out of 10. It is a good platformer. It's not really as profound as I thought. It's got a good level of atmosphere, I think. The platforming plays pretty well. It's very moody, I would say. I think probably the game's like biggest problem is that the best ending is hard to reach in, well, more than one way. I mean, it's very challenging, but particularly the part I don't like is that some of the steps you have to follow are so kind of specific that it's hard to imagine discovering them without some trial and error. Because I don't really think there were like hints to figure out a few of them. It was a little odd, but anyway, I think even in the modern day, the game still feels fresh. So that's pretty good. Next, Paper Mario N64. I know I'm really piling up the stack here. I'd say this was another 7 out of 10. I think what Paper Mario did well as an RPG, even though it's, it's nothing like extraordinary, but I really appreciate it not getting like bogged down and mired in stats. The way you get upgrades in the game is mostly by progressing. Like because everything you do is doing somewhere between like 1 and 4 damage. The biggest upgrades you get are going to be when you upgrade your boots or your hammer, and that just happens at story beats. And you can get a little stronger with badge points, but even just like leveling up, you'll gradually get some levels as you progress, pretty much no matter what. So you'll eventually get some of that and the actual health and flower points. If you wanted to grind, the benefit from like one more level up isn't that tremendous, and it would be so excruciating to grind that you just kind of don't really want to do it, and you don't need to, and I think that's pretty good. I'd say that probably like, oh yeah, also the items tend to be your best friend. If you like a fight's too hard, rather than you trying to grind a level up, you're better off just trying to bring a few better items, and I think that's pretty good. Yeah, I think that's all about roughly all I've got to say. Next, I played Star of Providence. Last year, Animal Well was probably my game of the year, so I was excited to see Star of Providence. I know technically it wasn't a completely new game. It was like a rework slash expansion on an existing game called Monolith, but this was published by Big Mode, so I wanted to check it out. And I played it on Switch, which I kind of regret. I think I would have gotten more out of it if I played on PC. I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. As I said, I don't love roguelikes, although I think that this plays a little better because I think in particular the like make a few, like choose from one of a few explicit things starts to, again, like tempt me to play the same way over and over. And in Star of Providence, that's a lot more of you take what you get, you know? You might decide to pass on a certain weapon, or maybe you can make some choices in how you upgrade it, but like, again, you're pretty much rolling with what you get. The only thing I didn't really like that much that I think held me back from probably having a more positive experience, I found the controls on Switch to be kind of difficult. For being like more or less a bullet hell type game, the ability to move and aim precisely is really important. When I finally kind of got used to it and using strafe mode, I felt okay, but I still had a harder time aiming than I think I could have if I just used a mouse. And obviously that means harder fights feel yet harder. I don't know. I was not like blown away with this game overall. I thought it's like cool. It also had a strong level of atmosphere and a really great soundtrack, but it didn't stick out to me in any particular way. Next, I played Zelda 4 Swords Adventures. I'm also giving this one a 6 out of 10. It's not a bad game, but it's a really weird game. It's clearly very much built around the multiplayer experience, and I did play it single player, but I do think if I played it multiplayer, like I think I would have just kind of gotten sick of it pretty quick. I mean, it would be fun, but the game is a little bit samey sometimes. A lot of levels kind of boil down to you need to get, item A. Well, you can't quite get item A, but if you get item B, you can get item C, and then with item C, you can get item A, and then finally, so you kind of just do this little puzzle where you're trying to figure out, like, what item can I get that gets me the thing I actually need that lets me progress, and that tends to feel a little samey after a while. I don't have too much more to say about it, honestly. Next, I played Donkey Kong Country 2, and I think overall would probably put it maybe like a notch lower than I would put the first one. Mechanically, I liked it. I think it has more going on for it. I felt like generally there was kind of better like level variety. The only thing is, like, I thought it was really strange how what like the banana coins were for. I didn't really get it. Basically, what I found myself doing is every time I would beat a level, I would just try and get to a save point. And so what I would usually just do then is like grind however many banana coins I needed to pay for that save point. And that's about it. And I spent them very rarely on anything else. And I definitely muscled my way through to the end. I got quite a few game overs. I think more than I got in Donkey Kong Country 1. But eventually I got there. I will say, of course, the soundtrack in the first game, really great. Second one, probably better, which is a tough feat. The beehive levels were maybe my favorite, but it's hard to beat the music in the Bramble levels. So next, Doom 2016. And I have a hard time placing if I would call that like an 8 or a 7. It's really on the borderline. And I think I'm just kind of rounding down, but it's a 7. It's close to an 8. The soundtrack, amazing. The level of the like gunplay feels good, and it's kind of weird. I played Quake last year. It doesn't feel that different from Quake. You feel maybe like a little slippery, but you're very fast. The guns feel kind of the same. They feel good mostly, especially like like rocket launcher. Yeah, I mean, if anything, I probably underutilized BFG. I think there are some fights where it could have just cleared it out for me a lot easier. Um, what was really, I mean, it would honestly make me laugh, some of the glory kills, because they're so over the top, just the way you demolish these demons. And the most fun 15 seconds of a level would be one that had the berserk power up and you just go insane with your fists. And especially if it's one with a good track and the soundtrack kicks in. I mean, it's the highs of this high are high, but sometimes it has a tendency to feel a little samey. And when I think back to it, a lot of it is really blurred in my head. And the whole, like, you know, you're getting upgrade trees, it was like fine, but felt a little superfluous. You know, whatever. Next, I played Nubby's Number Factory. This game just looks so stupid that I wanted to try it. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. The main thing is, maybe there's been more updates since. I played this probably in like, I don't know, May, June, something like that. Maybe earlier. Probably earlier. Somewhere in the first half of the year. It's so just silly and stupid, and it really makes me laugh. But I did quickly feel like there's just not that much to do. I think that the challenge levels had a really wasted potential. I think that I wish that they were like more rewarding to complete. There's kind of no point to doing them, even though a lot of them, I think, like they rig your run in a way that's usually an interesting challenge. I don't know. It was pretty fun for the few hours that I played it, but nothing like too exciting, I would say. Next, Blueprints, probably my game of the year. I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. It's close. It was close to a 9. The peaks in this game were really, really good. And unfortunately, I think it fails to stick the landing at a few points. So, like, the beginning is maybe just a little too slow. You kind of have no idea what you're doing or should be doing. And then at the end, like, I think that as you start to run out of sort of like leads you want to check, it's, you know, when you don't get a run going the way you want, that gets a little annoying. And then some of the like ideas that you want to test become really like tedious and challenging to test. But that's okay. I mean, it's still, for what it was worth, I had a great time with this game. I think what the fact that you draft rooms in this house is really good at building anticipation, because a lot of the puzzles require getting like 2 rooms to interact in some kind of way. And as you start to build this list, either in your mind or by writing it down, of kind of what interactions you want to try, you get to a point in kind of the mid-game where every single day you can make something cool happen, and you probably can also think of something else cool that you want to try. So you're always like making progress when you have a lot of leads to chase, and it's very exciting to try and actually make it to room 46 and you know, realizing like what it all entails and how to put it all together. That was a lot of fun. Like that part of kind of like going from I know what I'm doing now to I'm in room 46 and a bit past that into the post game, like that's awesome. And again, I wish this game kind of stuck the landing better than that in the post game, but it's still really, really great. Next, I played Ghost Trick, Phantom Detective, at the recommendation of a friend. I played it on original Nintendo DS cartridge. He lent me his cartridge. Unfortunately, I would give it a 5 out of 10. It was very innovative. It's really more of a visual novel than it is like a game. But the problem is that some of the levels like kind of just started to feel like a slog for me. The way you interact with some of the objects, like it starts to become so unclear, like kind of unintuitive what the interaction will do, that you have to just try stuff and hope for the best. And more or less put it together by brute force a lot of the time, I thought. So, sometimes it's still obvious, but sometimes it's really, I think, tough to figure it out. And the problem is you're kind of on this timer, and then it'll reset by you having to kind of rewatch all the story beats, which I found pretty annoying. And I just kind of switched to using a walkthrough for the last maybe quarter of the game. Also, unfortunately, for being a visual novel, I would have hoped for a little more from the story. I did find it, the mystery kind of premise interesting to keep me going at first, but after a while, I thought, what are we doing here? So I didn't think it was that great. Next, I played Superhot. I had seen this game. I'd heard of the premise, and I'd seen like some basic video of it, maybe the trailer. I'm giving it also a 5 out of 10. I think that it does not actually execute on its core concept particularly well. So the main issue I kind of took with it is that even when you're standing still, time still passes kind of slowly, which gives you just barely enough time to react to projectiles like bullets, especially with the first-person perspective. And the real problem with this is not so much reacting to things that you can see, because, you have to be quick, but you could do it. The problem is that most of the levels, enemies are just spawning in all around you, and you kind of just have to just pivot and swivel around. And the thing is, it's like that little amount of time to look around might be enough that a bullet's already hit you. And so eventually you kind of just have to learn where everyone spawns in. And I found myself, like, even though this is a game about trying to play as aggressively as possible and being able to manipulate time effectively, I found myself playing very campy really often because I would just sit in the corner where a guy isn't going to spawn behind me. So, I don't know. I just really didn't think it was that good. I was disappointed, honestly. Next, I played Zelda Skyward Sword, and I would give that a 6 out of 10. It's funny, Skyward Sword, so I kind of have this, I invented this grading scale for games to draw some big difference between levels of goodness, as opposed to, I think there was an era where like every single AAA game would get somewhere between like an 8.5 and a 10 from like all the outlets, and where 8.5 would be like, it's kind of bad. And 10 was like, yeah, anywhere between it's good to it's really, really, really good. I bring this anecdote up because Skyward Sword got a 10 from like every gaming outlet and when it came out, and that's when I stopped reading them because I thought that's unbelievable. Anyway, I revisited Skyward Sword for the first time in like 14 years. I actually played the HD version on Switch, which I heard improves on the annoyingness of Fi. And also, I think, makes a lot of dialogue faster and cutscenes optionally skippable. So I generally thought the dungeons were pretty good. I did not really like the overworld sections. The overworld doesn't really feel alive at all. It feels very disparate. I mean, it's like explicitly disconnected by the sky area, which was... I thought like pretty pointless. Like you have this whole sky area and it feels so empty. Besides Skyloft, which is very nice and lively and well designed, and then the little offshoot Pumpkin Landing, and then all these other tiny islands that have like one treasure chest on them. I just thought like, what's the point of this? And then the overworld areas, they don't feel like good overworld areas at all. They just, you kind of go through them as they're a puzzle, and then you unlock some kind of shortcut so that you don't have to traverse that puzzle section again. And you do that over and over and over again, algorithmically, in these areas that have some enemies, but often have no NPCs. And it just doesn't feel like alive at all. It feels quite dull after a while. And honestly, some of them felt like a slog. I was disappointed with how much Fi interrupts you, which again I heard was actually toned down for this. And there was like a moment that struck me, for example. I said that I thought some of the dungeons were quite good. In addition to their both like in the terms of their design as puzzle boxes, but also like from their aesthetic design as well. The ancient cistern was very cool, and the pirate ship. I think those two were probably my favorite. And both of them have moments where there's a puzzle that like may or may not be obvious, and Fi will just tell you like, "Oh, did you see that?" Or I remember being struck, and like I think I had to take a break and put down the controller because it just made it made me upset. Yeah, I definitely remember texting my friend about this because I was like, "You've got to be kidding me." There's this puzzle in Majora's Mask where it's actually like a pretty tricky puzzle, and you have to make the realization that when you're outside of a certain room, there's this room that's really like dark and it doesn't seem like you can cross it, and you have to make the realization that outside you can actually place a bomb on the floor, which is the ceiling of the room you're stuck in, and that'll let sunlight in, and then you can progress through the room. There's a puzzle almost exactly like this in Skyward Sword, where there's light shining through like I don't know, some kind of entranceway in the ceiling, and you can look through it, and you can like hit the time crystal on the ship. Instead of you having to make this connection, Fi just draws your attention to it and says, "Oh, look at this light coming through. Why don't you look up through that?" I mean, it was like patronizing, and it made me upset. I thought I thought we're better than this. So 6 out of 10. Next, I played Braid, and Braid, I like kind of a mixed bag. The puzzles were cool, were like pretty good. Some of them were like diabolically difficult. But overall, I thought that I had a little bit of a hard time totally getting into it. Give it a 7 out of 10. I think that some of the puzzles, unfortunately, would get so tricky. And the fact that you had to solve all of them to get every puzzle piece and to progress the final chapter, I almost had this like level of learned helplessness. So sometimes I would just kind of have to put the game down for a bit and come back when I was more ready to really think hard about a puzzle. I think I had to look up a small number of the solutions, maybe like 3 or 4. Most of them I eventually was able to figure out. Some were really, really hard. And the ending sequence was very cool, although I didn't find the narrative through the game that compelling, honestly. And I didn't also, at the end, it hits me with something that I think was with some symbolism that I don't know if I was supposed to just pick up on the whole way. It didn't really seem like that at all, and I thought it seemed a little out of left field and almost ham-fisted in the way that the game was like telling me this. I don't know. I think it could have done a little better maybe in like the narrative department. I hope Jonathan Blow doesn't watch this, or maybe he does. I don't know. I was laughing at the Soldier Boy video of this game. But, that's not going to stop me from playing The Witness eventually, which I've heard excellent things about. I mean, again, I'm a puzzle enthusiast at heart, and I did like the puzzles here. This just was not like a puzzle experience that I thought is like a must play. Next, I played Cuphead, and I would give Cuphead an 8 out of 10. Cuphead was a lot of fun. It's not usually my type of genre. It's like basically a boss rush type game. But I found it fun. The art style was really nice, and I they did a great job using it in the service of the gameplay in the way that like the bosses will all telegraph their next move with these like beautiful, I think hand-drawn cartoon animations. And even though the game is hard, it never feels unfair. Again, you have a chance to react to almost everything. It's a matter of managing, am I positioned in a place that'll give me options to dodge in maybe more than one way? Am I getting the timing right? It's almost never you're just like dying and you just think like, what a load of malarkey. I did still, because I had to kind of focus in quite a bit, it was hard for me to play more than maybe like one or two bosses per session. But I found myself coming back often, and I think I beat Cuphead in only a few days. It was a lot of fun, and the final gauntlet in the casino level, that was great. That went from like, how am I possibly going to do this, to really that sort of leveling up, personal, just skill level experience. That I think is a lot of what I liked in, for example, F-Zero GX. Next, oh man, you know there's two games here, and you can tell probably which one I'm going to talk about. I played Breath of the Wild, and I didn't like it that much. I mean, it was still good. I don't really know if it deserves like a 6 or 7 from me. I mean, I'm like rounding down a bit. It's better than Skyward Sword. I'll tell you, it's better than Skyward Sword. Is it quite a 7? I don't know. There was a lot of stuff in this game that really I found to be like a drag or unsatisfying. The first few hours, okay, so the Great Plateau kind of tutorial area, fine. In fact, if anything, pretty good. The next like few hours after that, I found like to be really poorly tuned. You have like no stamina, so it's really hard to climb anything. You have no armor, so just everything one-shots you. Well, I mean, maybe like red bokoblins don't, but like anytime you find an enemy tougher than that, they will like one-shot you. You only have access to like terrible weapons, so they're breaking constantly. You have like no inventory, so you can only store like 5 weapons. So you're just going through your whole inventory on any kind of like medium difficulty fight. It's not until you finally kind of get things going a little bit, you finally get like a piece of armor, and then maybe you even find one of the great fairies and you can upgrade that armor. And now you can start taking like some real fights, and you find a few Korok seeds and you upgrade your inventory, and you can store more than like 6 weapons. And you're also starting to find some mid-tier and high-tier weapons, so they don't break immediately. I really hated the weapon fragility system. I know the point is you're supposed to forage, and there's weapons everywhere, but I just kind of like, I don't... Okay, but if there's weapons everywhere, then like, what's even the point of having them break in the first place? I don't understand. There's a lot of like these emergent mechanics that are very thoughtfully programmed. So many like clever things you can do, and where the game starts to excel is like, one, if you really start to play around with these emergent interactions, especially like fighting enemies in kind of weird and unique ways, or solving some of the shrine puzzles in ways that may or may not have been intended. And in particular, for kind of the first at least while, I think that like the payoff from a shrine, in that you get like every 4 of them, will be worth either a heart container or an upgrade to your stamina, and both of those start so low. And in particular, you need a bunch of heart containers to get the Master Sword. It feels rewarding to go to every shrine you can, and kind of in the mid game when you're not getting just like one shot by everything, you actually can explore. You've got some stuff in your inventory, and you can take a fight. Every 10 minutes you can find something new. Every around the corner, oh, there's a shrine, or there's a tower, or there's a stable, or there's something interesting. And then that's where the game really excels. And I found myself having a few play sessions in the middle game where I would play for multiple hours, and it really didn't feel like that at all. In the late game, I think things started to really wind down a bit. After I got the Master Sword, and I was probably 2 to 3 divine beasts in, I really felt uncompelled to like explore much more. It didn't really feel that rewarding. Most side quests, unfortunately, were not that rewarding. A few were really rewarding. One gave me like fireproof armor, and then a bunch of them would just give me junk. And I thought, I don't really understand what's the point of this. Yeah, I just thought that like there's a lot of the game, for as much as it sort of presents itself as being so open. I do think that you are still kind of forced into taking certain gameplay paths, which is like upgrade my stuff as much as possible. And I was a bit disappointed at the general sameness of mostly the shrines. I would say that the different regions were sufficiently different enough. But like shrines, the fact that they all have the same textures and music, they started to feel kind of like a drag after a while. And when I stopped needing more heart containers and more stamina, I just stopped doing them and just tried to finish off the main quest. And yeah, I just basically I don't get what the hype is all about with this game. I know that a lot of people have this as like their best game of all time. If anything, I'm a little jealous. I wish I got it, but that's okay. I got lots of other games to play. So I guess Breath of the Wild is just a 6 out of 10 for me. And then finally, Baba Is You. I would give it a 7 out of 10. Baba Is You has some pretty great puzzles. They also get like diabolically difficult. They're very clever. And I beat 85 levels. That's how many of the dandelions I collected, which I think is only like maybe a little more than a third. I think there's like 230 levels. I probably will not go back and play more, but I did have a good time with them. I think that maybe the one problem with Baba Is You is like sometimes you're best off just brute forcing a bunch of stuff and hoping. On the more complicated levels, I think it helps to just experiment with a few things and sort of understand what the moving parts really all are that are available to you. But it's so hard with like a Sokoban type game that's also got this this extra layer of mechanic, this like linguistic rule mechanic going on. It's so hard to just like calculate, and it's so easy to just try stuff, especially since the undo button is like right there in front of you. And maybe that's not that much of a bad thing, but the one thing that really, I guess, holds this game back for me from being like one of the best puzzlers I've played is there's just not that much reason to keep playing besides love of the puzzles. There's essentially no like motivating plot or anything. There's hardly any unlockables. I know that you basically just unlock more worlds by completing worlds and getting like the flowers. But it was still really good, and I think that's about a conclusion. Bit of a tight spread this year. Didn't play any games that I thought were really excellent or masterpieces, and I think that's okay. It's not every year I'm going to get to play a masterpiece. Blueprints was really close to being that 9 out of 10 category. Sometimes I wonder if it's the games I played or if it's just the way I felt. But it's hard to be dissatisfied with still a good lineup of 7 out of 10s. And I didn't play any game that I thought was bad. So that was pretty good. Well, I did try a little bit. I did play maybe like an hour or two of NES Metroid. I didn't get far enough to give that a rating, but let's just say that it might go outside the spread and not on the high end. Okay, so I've been rambling a long time. I don't know if any of my friends will watch this. Maybe I'll rewatch this. Who knows? It's pretty narcissistic of me. Well, I'll see you guys next year, and hopefully I play more games than just 17.